Hi, everybody. As you're coming in, we'll get started in just a moment. Hi, everybody, and welcome. We'll let everybody kind of file in, and as we get started, we'd love to have you guys share where you're from and what you do in the chat. So if everybody will take a moment to introduce yourselves, say hello, contribute to the chat, we will get started. So thank you all so much for attending tonight's webinar, Take the Leap, Intentional Professional Learning for Gifted Educators. We're so excited to share more about the LEAP Education Project with all of you. My name is Lacey Compton. I'm the Director of Content and Learning for NAGC. And again, there's our webinar that we're doing tonight. And I'm here today with members of our LEAP development team. I'm really excited to introduce Heather Vaughn, who is currently the Associate Director for the Rick Center for Gifted Children at the University of Denver. She serves as a series editor for the LEAP Education Project. Christine L. Weber is a professor of childhood education, literacy, and TESOL at the University of North Florida in Jacksonville. And Emily Mofield is an assistant professor at Lipscomb University. Chris and Emily teamed up to author the LEAP Guidebook for Curriculum Design for Teachers of Gifted and High Potential Students and their accompanying online modules. And they're all here today to share more about the LEAP program and how it encourages very intentional, planned, directed, and actionable professional development for educators. So going to turn it over to Heather.
All right, welcome, and thank you all for being here to hear more about LEAP and how we're moving forward. I see lots of different places that we're coming in from in the chat, so just welcome to all of you. So tonight, or earlier in the afternoon, depending on where you're at, we're reviewing these core tenets of LEAP. We're going to look at the resources, specifically the first guidebook in the series, and really focus and talk about that how piece of doing curriculum design. So the first question I think most people want to know when they're getting into this series, whether it's the module or the guidebooks, is what in the world is LEAP and what is it for? And really the focus is on the educators choosing to go forth in their own learning and make their students better by using effective and actionable strategies that are part of a reflective practice. And so to give you a little bit of background, the LEAP acronym was developed with the NAGC staff, and it was based on NAGC members' needs. And then that brainstorming from what then expanded into the LEAP framework came from a core team of teachers and curriculum writers that were working together a few years ago. And that team represented lots of members from the NAGC community in higher education, in K-12, and a variety of roles from different backgrounds and different states, and living under different policies and regulations for gifted students across the nation. And so with this team, they expanded the LEAP, Lead with Effective and Actionable Practice framework into these guiding statements that then they dug into deeper to articulate what best practices looked like for each of those areas. And so we'll talk about that more and how that shift in how we approach professional learning as we improve our practice. So again, there you have what LEAP stands for: Lead with Effective and Actionable Practice. And we're going to look at how that framework kind of unfolds. So here's your four main tenets for LEAP. And we're going to dive deeper into each of those. So we're going to move to the first section of LEAD. So educators choose to engage in a continuum of professional learning that improves their practice and the practice of others to support gifted and talented students. Well, to dig into that a little bit deeper, as we're thinking about the outcomes, these outcomes for LEAD really speak to how important it is to be a lifelong learner as an educator, being open to feedback, expanding your knowledge base and strategies, and examining your part in being able to teach cultural competencies. And as we become change agents, that requires knowing the trends, knowing the current research, mentoring, and becoming part of communities of practice. When we look at effective, educators choose to explore and evaluate practices that are relevant and responsive to meeting the needs of gifted and talented students. So when we look at the outcomes of that, we're really thinking about how that requires us to use evidence-based practices and strategies that incorporate cultural relevance. Our student population, as you've probably noticed, is always growing and changing. And we, as educators, we have to stay up to date on the best practices that are steeped in research and the current standards that we're held to. When we look at the actionable section, educators choose to apply their professional knowledge and skills by creating and facilitating meaningful learning experiences for gifted and talented students. So this is a big piece, right? Actionable outcomes are focusing on gathering the data, creating those intentional lessons that are embedding culturally and socially responsive content. And as educators, we are wanting to cultivate student agency and student voice so that they can become those successful and engaged, contributing global citizens. And then the last section is practice. Educators choose to continually gather evidence to evaluate and improve the learning experience of gifted and talented students. So when we dig into that, practice means exactly that. We're trying to practice this now. We're focusing on the student progress, those summative, informative assessments, making those plans for modifications, for accommodations, for enrichment, for acceleration. We're taking time to focus on self-reflection. We're thinking about how to better collaborate with other practitioners to really improve our personal practice, but our community's practice so that we're benefiting all students. And so with that, kind of as a segue, we're looking at how, as a LEAP outcome, as the LEAP whole, how professional learning is emphasizing that how. You notice I said how a lot of times, because that is the big defining piece of this. And so when we're looking at the curriculum design tonight, but even with all the other books and modules that are coming, these are really designed for educators. They're super quick. I have teachers at my center that already are utilizing these, whether they're new to the field, whether you're just trying to improve your practice and learn new strategies, to help you with a PLC focus. And I have teachers that are actually doing this as a book study, which is also listed there. It's good for university settings. It's good for district-wide professional learning. So the the thing about LEAP is that it can kind of flex to what you're really wanting to do with it. It can be as individualized as teacher to teacher, but it can also be a broader initiative that you use in districts, in schools, in universities. And so with that, I'm going to pass it off to Emily and Chris.
All right, thank you so much. So Chris and I, we were so excited to get to put together this first book and set of modules. So we'll be talking through what these actually look like. And, we want to say that this isn't quite the level of a graduate class or a course for university, but it's a lot of exposure to those concepts where educators are introduced to these concepts so that hopefully they'd want to go further. So I'm going to start talking a little bit about these guidebooks. So we'll go on to the next slide. So in our field, we have so many wonderful models for curriculum design. And so we're not necessarily emphasizing one model, but we put together, like, among all of these models and current practices, these are the components for what high quality gifted curriculum should entail. And so this guidebook really shows lots of examples and ideas for what do we mean by accelerated content? As we look at this curriculum, to what extent are they able to go beyond grade level content? Is the curriculum differentiated for their strengths, for their interests, so that they can pursue that area of talent that they show strengths in? Does this allow them to develop expertise? Do they get to go beyond that surface level learning into those next steps? That's really what the talent development model is emphasizing. And then, are they able to really apply their learning to a real world situation or issue? And to what extent is this curriculum culturally responsive? So these are guiding principles, guiding questions that we could ask. We have checklists throughout these guidebooks so that you can evaluate your current curriculum, but also so that you can put lessons together to make sure they incorporate all of these high quality features. And so each chapter, we have our core tenets. These are core ideas that will be in all of the LEAP guidebooks. That we're talking about the curriculum one tonight, but I know that there's discussions and work being done for one on differentiation and maybe one on social emotional learning. So all these core tenets will be the same throughout. We have specific outcomes, and we open each chapter with a vignette, a real world situation with a teacher who is kind of like a mini case study. We really draw from our own experiences. I mean, I do remember being a teacher, a gifted ed teacher, going into my closet and seeing these logic puzzles and vocabulary workbooks and thinking, is this what gifted curriculum should be? And so from those types of scenarios, we've developed these vignettes for readers to think through as they go through the guidebook. Then we get into the chapter content, and then we close revisiting with that vignette, and then have some time for reflection where readers can apply and think about their learning. So this just shows some examples of what the chapters will hit on. These are just some of the examples of the A part, the action. So the content in the chapters will cover a lot of these outcomes. How do we gather knowledge to inform learning? How do we embed culturally and socially responsive content? How do we intentionally design engaging lessons? So those are the types of things we'll see in the chapter. This is just an example of something that we have, I believe, in one of the chapter 3 of the guidebook. We aren't overly prescriptive with a design process. We put this design process together from multiple sources and best practices in instructional planning. But we just wanted to kind of give you a glimpse of what this step-by-step process would look like in designing curriculum. We we want to know, what do students need to know, do, and understand? What do they already know, do, and understand? How will we plan these learning experiences? And how will we know that they know, do, and understand? So we developed this design sequence based on those questions. Right, and I think, and then here, this is just an example of, and Chris, do you want to go on and take
Yep,
this one?
I'll take that on. In each of the chapters of the guidebook, we do have the vignettes that Emily just spoke about. And what we tried to do was come back to that and have it follow through a teacher's thinking, perceptions, ideas, biases, maybe, when thinking about curriculum development. And so we wanted to make sure, because reflection is such an important component of any professional learning experience, we wanted to be to emphasize the need and the time for reflection. So we offer reflection questions at the end of each chapter to dive a little bit deeper, to think about what was read in the chapter at a more personal level. So we take it back to you as the learner and encourage you to think about the material that you just dealt with and maybe where you might go next. I think too, one of the really unique things about the guidebook is this idea of a quick reference guide. Many of us have seen quick reference guides that are standalone. In fact, in the LEAP guidebooks, we have quick reference guides that are part of the guidebook. And we were so excited to take this new idea on and add it as a component, because I think it makes the book more usable and more teacher friendly. And what we did was, Emily and I had so much material that we wanted to cover with limited space, and we had an understanding of what's going to speak to learners. And so we wanted to make sure that we developed graphics, some kind of quick peeks, quick reminders, charts that were easy and simple, not text heavy, just to remind you about the different components, the tenets of LEAP, and give you ideas. So a quick review perhaps, or a quick preview of what's to come. We also made sure that within the quick reference guide that we had access to even more material and information through QR codes. So we were able to pack a lot of great information that some overlaps in the book and some of it takes you a little bit further than what you would find in the guidebook. Also, we included lists of resources. So I think this is something that really makes the guidebooks unique. Here is one of the pages of the quick reference guide related to actionable. So there's always a reminder about the tenet and the outcomes. And then again, you can see the charts and then links to resources that we provide. So this kind of gives you a sneak peek of what that quick reference guide. And I think there are 4 pages. Am I right, Lacey? Well, no. No, there's more than that, because there's front and back.
There's 6 pages.
6
It folds
pages.
out from the cover. Yeah.
So 6 pages packed with great resources, information, charts, and material.
All right, so that was the book. And then we have another section of LEAP. It's really about these online modules. And together, these modules would take about 30 hours to complete. This includes the guidebook. It includes activities where the person participating needs to read the guidebook, in addition to other readings that we have pulled together from various sources and authors. And then it also includes videos, and we'll talk about that in a bit, and other points of reflection. So just to kind of give a scope for what these modules cover, we start out just covering the features of high quality curriculum. Then module 2 is about how do we choose and evaluate or select high quality gifted curriculum. And then module 3 is how do we design learning experiences, from lesson planning to unit planning. Module 4 really focuses on those inquiry-based learning models like PBL, problem-based learning, deep inquiry investigations, and then module 5 focuses on assessment. So these can be purchased separately, or possibly altogether, but they can be purchased separately, but they all require the guidebook.
And those modules really take you into a much deeper dive of the information, the resources, the research that reflect what we understand and know about curriculum development for gifted and high ability learners.
Yes, yes, for sure. And so the modules that outline for this, we start out with guiding questions and we have objectives. Then we have a learn segment, and you learn from reading and watching videos. However, I would not say that this is equivalent to like a university course, but it's a great equivalent for professional learning through schools. But then we have this section called apply, and we came up with various choices, about 6 choices, and then the participant would choose 2 of those where they really have to roll up their sleeves and dive in. We'll show some examples to apply their learning. Then there is a quiz, a multiple choice quiz, and then we offer a self-assessment. So we'll dive in. Lacey will show you. We'll click on these, let you see what it actually looks like when you log in to see these modules. And yes, there we have it right there. So this looks like it's module 1, and you'll see this is the one that's focused on, you know, what are those features of high quality gifted curriculum? And we have this section on the left, just the sequence that someone would go through. The first part is just that engage, where we provide those learning objectives and those general directions. We have like a little intro video of what the module is about. And then we get to the learn section, and this is where we have our assigned readings. Part of it is from the guidebook, but parts are from other excerpts from NAGC publications or other articles that we could incorporate. And you will see we have guided questions written for each reading or each video, to kind of focus the reader on what to pay attention to. And then we have the apply section. This was the most fun to co-create. These are actual options, activities for the learner to do. So as you'll see in option 1, review a curriculum unit and apply the checklist that we have from our guidebook. And to what extent does it really show high quality curriculum? That's one of those examples. Option 3, we briefly mention all of these wonderful models that are out there for designing gifted curriculum. So, you know, you're tasked to dive deeper into at least one in at least one of those, and to learn more about it and to consider how that could apply to your own development of curriculum. And then we have the reflect and assess, and we have a short quiz, about 10 questions, and it can be taken more than once. It can really be taken over and over again to achieve a passing score. I believe that's of an 80%. And then we have a self-assessment worksheet, and that is just to consider your most important takeaways and next steps for learning. So that just kind of gives you an idea of how it looks once you've logged in. Right. And then, so here are just some examples of some of those guided questions. You know, these are important. How is curriculum for gifted different from the general curriculum? And again, what are those features and how are these truly responsive to the needs of gifted learners? Why aren't these features for everyone, or are they for everyone? And we dial it up a notch. And then we introduce these NAGC programming standards, which are very, very important. So how can we use those standards to evaluate and plan curriculum for gifted? So that's just module 1, but that should hopefully give you a taste for what's involved. And we've talked about a few of those apply activities when I showed you those. All right, and Chris?
I'm thinking about this whole idea of professional learning and what we know about professional learning. I came off co-editing a series of 3 NAGC books on professional learning. And so this was really important for us to think about as kind of the defining features, the nature of where we wanted to go with this project, both the modules and the guidebook. And so we felt it was really important, and Emily mentioned some of these, but to bring speakers that maybe folks couldn't hear or see, couldn't travel to a state or national conference, bring them to you through the modules. And we have some wonderful folks who really stepped up and donated their time to really talk about key issues related to curriculum development and design. And I think you'll find these interesting, exciting, and an opportunity maybe to feel more personally connected to those in the field. We chose a variety of readings. We got permissions for articles that are available and materials through NAGC, but we wanted you to see the wealth and the richness of what is available and provide that in an easy access format in these modules. The modules are jam-packed, but with such good stuff that I think once you start on one module, you won't want to miss any of the others. We make intentional connections to the guidebook. The guidebook alone is a great introduction, but I think this is kind of the icing on the cake when you get involved with the modules, because you then really begin to see, okay, how can I make this work for me? What can I do that's effective in terms of what the research and best practice tells me when I'm choosing, developing, designing curriculum for my gifted learners. And so we have been able to provide a number of access points to resources that may be sometimes difficult for you to find or time consuming, and they are all now within these modules.
Yes, and I would say that there is quite a bit that are in we include in these modules, but there's a lot of opportunities for choice. And so we try to practice what we preach, what we do with our own students, right? So some examples of some of the videos we've used videos from the NAGC Summit. We've been able to use some of those. We have specific videos from Catherine Little, from Sheila Gallagher, from Donna Ford, from Joyce Van Tassel-Basket. I'm afraid I'm going to leave somebody out. We have so many experts in our field that have given their time to create informative videos as well. So we were really excited to put all of this together. We'll go on to the next slide. So we also invited authors of the NAGC award-winning curriculum writers. We've invited them to make videos on their work. And so you'll hear the authors of the William and Mary units, the Vanderbilt units, Sheila Gallagher's units. We invited several authors from those what is evidence-based curriculum in gifted? And so we define that, and we invited those authors to create videos. And so there's an activity where you have a choice to watch at least one of these and learn much more about this curriculum and what it looks like from the authors themselves.
So thinking about that whole reflection piece, and we've talked about this a little bit about the self-assessment portion of it, but intentionally throughout everything that we developed and with our NAGC counterparts, we knew it was really important to think about what that self-assessment should look like. How much time can folks have available to really stop and think about what they engaged in when they chose the particular activities that they did, and in what ways did what they learn and how they applied help them develop their own expertise in thinking. And these modules are great with folks working individually, but it's maybe something also to think about in a larger group setting where you have multiple teachers or educators interested, where you can come back to some of these self-assessment questions and even do some more wider sharing, and reflect on those guiding questions that are offered for the videos and the readings. And what's next? What would I like to learn about? Where are the gaps still in my knowledge? What is interesting to me? And even though you may choose one or two videos, you might want to go back and watch them all because they are all fantastic. And how often do you get to speak or to watch and hear from the actual authors of those particular units and curriculum materials? When we finished, Emily and I thought about this, and we agreed that it probably would be helpful for someone who is leading a professional learning community or group, or even a book walk that's kind of aligned with the modules and the guidebook, on providing some kind of outline or guide for PL. And so that was one of the last things that we did, because I know I've led professional learning sessions and I'm engaged and I know the information, but sometimes I think it's helpful to have some guiding questions, some ideas on how I might take it one step further. And because we were so immersed in the development of the guidebook and the modules, I don't think this was a difficult part for us. I think once we came up with the outline, and you can see the components that follow the outline, opportunities to reflect on learning, how we would compare current practice to maybe a new practice based on what we've learned and now understand and can do in the modules and the guidebook. How do we apply that learning, and then engaging in those next steps? So I really think the organization of the PLC guide is going to be helpful for any of us who are leading small groups, large groups, any of those discussions, to kind of take it to that next step or level, to really get into what it means to each of those that have participated, to their practice and their learning and their understanding, and really trying to model what is good professional learning. And having that guide, I think, is part of that big picture.
So this is just what that PLC guide looks like. We've tried to align it to the LEAP framework as well. But I think one thing to keep in mind, if you are leading a group of teachers with this, they are going to do their quiz and they'll have a quiz grade, but no one's really going to keep up with, like on the NAGC side of things, they turned in their apply activities and that kind of thing. And so this is an opportunity, if you're leading a group of teachers, to ask them to bring their apply activities, and like you're gonna dive in and talk about it together and reflect through the PLC. And these PLC questions allow you to do that. So that's really an overview of these modules and the guidebook. And so we ask you to just consider, like, wow, how can this lead to effective and actionable practice for myself and for those that I lead? So we leave you with that question to reflect upon. And I think Lacey may have a few things to share.
Yeah, thank you guys so much. So I really appreciate everybody who came out tonight to hear a little bit more about LEAP and learn from Chris, Emily, and Heather more about this program. I really want to emphasize that a key piece of what we're doing with LEAP at NAGC is encouraging this idea of intentional, purposeful professional learning. We know, as you guys probably know, that if you just turn on a video and you're just listening, often you don't absorb that. You don't really take that learning and go and apply it in your classroom. And so the goal of LEAP is to create professional learning that you can actually use in your classroom. That's useful to you, that encourages you to act on it, that encourages you to apply that learning. And so throughout this program, you're going to see, encouragement that you do what the how they present the hows, and that you take that how and you put it into practice. So as Heather kept mentioning the how earlier, that's really important and a big key piece of LEAP. It's not just sitting and listening, it's not sitting and getting, it's actually demonstrating the type of teaching and learning we want for our students, but for yourself as an educator. The LEAP program, particularly the modules, is self-paced. All participants receive access for a year, so you can work on your own time. And then we're flexible. We give the opportunity to extend that access if you need to. Like Emily said, it's about 30 hours of learning in total, about 6 hours per module. But again, you can work at your own time and your own pace. So it may be that you want to watch a video one day, do a reading the next day, turn in your application activities another day to your district coordinator. It's really up to you and your leaders how you consume the program. A very key piece of all of the LEAP products is the idea of connecting research to practice. We've been very intentional in developing LEAP that we think about that practitioner point of view, that we think about how we can take the research and use it and put it into place in our classrooms. As Chris and Emily mentioned, the LEAP program features experts in the field of gifted education, but it also features a lot of guidance from practitioners. We had practitioners, your peers, review these products before we published them. They came up with some excellent suggestions. They gave us pointers. They talked about the things they used in their own classrooms, in their own districts, and we were able to apply those and add those to the program. So that's really key, is thinking about that research to practice piece. I also want to note that the LEAP program aligns with the NAGC programming standards. I have a document I'll put in the chat here in a few minutes that has that alignment mapped out. So if you are at a district that requires that your PD does align with the NHC programming standards, it does. It also aligns with the NHC CEC teacher prep standards. Those are about to change, so we'll have a new document as soon as those prep standards, the revised ones, are released, that shows the alignment with those prep standards. And then, as Emily and Chris noted, the program includes PLC guides for group discussion. So you could decide to take this on your own as an individual teacher and really dig in and be committed to having intentional professional learning for yourself. Or if you're at the district level, you could say, hey, I really want to introduce this for, all of my teachers, or a team of teachers, or we've got a group who is working together and collaborating on developing curriculum that we'd like to have work on this program together. So lots of potential options there. To access LEAP, I have a link here. We can put it in the chat as well to purchase the book and the modules. NHC members do receive a discount on the book. You can purchase the modules individually, or you can purchase them in a bundle that includes the book and our LEAP framework guide. We do have group rates available. You can bundle those group rates with other event purchases, with membership. We're willing to flexibly work with your team. If you have a budget for professional development, don't hesitate to reach out and ask. We're happy to work with you. We really want to get as many districts thinking about curriculum design and development in a very intentional way as possible. I think Emily and Chris mentioned this earlier, but we do also have 2 programs that are in development. One is on differentiating instruction, and what is on social emotional development. So those will come out this fall. So as a thank you for attending the webinar, we do have some discount codes that we have here on the screen, and I can also drop those in the chat, and that gets you some discounts on the program. And I think that is about it. We wanted to see if anybody had any questions about LEAP that we can answer. like Suzette noted, a per person price. Yes, so on the website, it is listed as a per person price, but if you are interested in doing a group rate, you can request a group rate through our group inquiry form, which I will also put here in the chat for anyone who is interested. Any other questions?
Or any comments at this point?
Yeah.
We really had a wonderful time putting this together. And I know, as I was writing, I was like, what would I want to know when I started teaching? And sometimes we're asked, was this written for gifted ed teachers or for regular ed teachers or for new teachers? And so we tried to keep that wide. We do feel like everything we have in here can be applied in some way. So it's not just for gifted pullout teachers, gifted ed teachers who teach pullout. Like, we also incorporate a few mentionings of what if you're collaborating with other teachers, and how might you share this information? So it is written for a wide audience.
And we also paid attention to providing materials and resources that weren't only for elementary teachers, but
Mhm.
middle school and secondary. So we made sure that we had readings that would be of interest to those particular grade levels. And as Emily said, I work mostly with general ed practitioners. And so I came with that lens, saying, what is it that my graduate students might need to know just to begin thinking about what curriculum might be, and maybe even those that are interested in working with gifted students to be thinking about, oh, what is that next step? What do I need to know more about? And there are a lot of next steps in these materials. And I think one of the things too that Emily and I are both proud of, that there are opportunities with the charts and the graphics to evaluate, to self-evaluate, to think about the materials, the process, what are you already doing, how it might look different. So it's all ingrained, and it all came out. Emily and I are still, I think, astonished about how well we think everything came together. And even though it's like Emily said, it's not an extensive, it is a great place to start. It's a great place to have discussions. And I even think of those veteran teachers who need a refresher, working with some of those new teachers to the field, or those teachers who are interested, coming together as learning communities and sharing what they know and how they know it. And maybe, and I know Heather talked about this, where is the field going? What's the newest and latest? And, having those kind of discussions that have a focus and are carried through time, because we do know about professional learning that we want it to be intentional. We want it to be a series of events and discussions and happenings, not a one-shot deal. And I think we were able to make sure that that happened in the guidebook and also in the modules.
Yes, and I'm even like, people ask me all the time, well, what kind of curriculum should we use? What is evidence-based? A lot of times in gifted education, we go to teacher pay teachers, or what's just online. If you Google gifted curriculum, sometimes it's diluted lesson plans and it's not quite there. But yet our field, we have researchers and curriculum writers that have gone under extensive study with what works in gifted education. And so we have the list right there in the QR, the guidebook, the quick reference guide of what these curriculum units are. They're out there, they're available. We want other people to know about them.
Taryn asked about cost for the modules. The modules do have a cost. The modules are $79.95 each, or you can bundle those. They are not free to members. They are a professional learning program, so they do have a cost to those for members. We do offer discounts to groups of members, however. So if you have a group at your district, as I said, you can get a discount there. And if anybody is interested in doing a deeper demo on the modules, feel free to contact me. I've put my email address in the chat. You're welcome to reach out to me. I'm happy to do a deep demo with you and a member of your team to really dig through them and look at them and give you some more information and how those look and how you could possibly use those with your team in your particular situation. So, okay. I think we are about done. So I just want to say another big thank you to Chris, Emily, and Heather for joining us tonight and sharing more about this project. All three of these ladies worked tirelessly on this project. We are so thankful and grateful for their support at NAGC for all of the work that they did on this program. We can truly say that this came from the hearts and expertise of our members, and we are so thankful to have members like the three of them who can contribute to projects like this. So thank you guys again, and I hope everybody has a really good night, and we hope that you take a minute to take a look at LEAP. Thanks so much, guys.
Thank you all.
Thank you all.
Thanks for stopping.